Good morning. This is Laura Baga. I hope you have your coffee, your tea, your eye opener, and let's get started with our live coffee chat. So I'll give a few minutes to see if anybody comes in. If not, then we'll proceed with some news and then going into the lore. I recently posted a lore video on the Darkness Trilogy. I debated on doing the 3 individual books by themselves. I decided to approach it as a trilogy. Maybe next time I do another trilogy, like when I get on Thrawn Trilogy, for example, I will do each book individually. So if you're joining me, hello, good morning. And I hope that you're having a wonderful, wonderful Thursday morning wherever you're at. I hope you have your coffee. You know, I like humor. Show me your kitties, titties. See, my brain. This is what happens when you get older and you just love humor and stuff. Yeah, good morning. Can you see I need this eye opener already in my coffee? All right, so cheers to everybody. Good morning. All right. So there's been a lot of news going on lately because we are coming close to the Mandalore series and the Rise of Skywalker. And we are continuing to see disdain. Hello, Miss Nerf Herder. How are you? Good morning. I hope you have your calf. I hope you're ready. I hope you're having a great day. And if you're at work, peeping in and saying hello, then I hope that your work day is a good one. Yeah, so the first topic I want to cover with the news before we get into lore, because I don't want to make this live stream too long. I want to come in here and interact with you guys, talk about Star Wars, talk about the original lore. And I do keep on top of the news and the current new Star Wars that's going on. So I like to share that as well, put my input, compare and contrast. And so let's go to Anthony Daniels. Your Cocker Spaniel dog coffee mug. That's awesome. So you have your fur baby, the Cocker Spaniel, I guess. Right, Mr. Herder? Awesome. I love it. I have a Shih Tzu and 2 cats. And those are my fur babies. Yeah, so gotta love them fur babies, right? All right, so I'm gonna put this coffee down here. So let's get to Anthony Daniels. So there is an article about him saying how he didn't like his role or his portrayal in the new trilogy. And I really don't blame him, because when you look at C-3PO and even R2-D2 in the 6 original movies, let's see here. In the 6 original movies, they have, even though they're secondary characters, I guess you can say, they have a vital role in every single movie. And when you look into the lore and what George Lucas has to say about them, hey Mongo, how are you doing? Nice. Just don't get in trouble, but thank you. All right. So yeah, so they have a vital role. And even George says that the story is being told through them. I didn't prepare that quote to give that exact reference and date, but when you look it up, when you when you see that with George explaining R2-D2 and C-3PO, they are basically telling the lore or telling the Skywalker story. It's through their eyes, their narrative. Yes, 13-year-old dog. I love it. What a nice baby. So, hey, Ryan, how you doing? So we're going back. We're talking about Anthony Daniels. And so when you get into sequel trilogy, they're basically just being replaced. We knew that. We knew that they were going to bring in their own characters. However, that takes away from what George intended them to be, and they were to be the ones telling the story. And I thought this was great to touch bases on, since I did do the Darkness Trilogy lore on my channel. So please check that out. And has R2 revealing some very awesome vital data to Luke and Jason about their mom, about his mom and his dad. And so it kind of broke my heart a little bit to hear Anthony say what he did. But then when you continue to read in the article on what he had to say, then he says, you will be satisfied with the ending of Rise of Skywalker. And so then it's like, okay, so is he expressing himself and then has to cover his tracks? That's how I get it. So he's saying, I don't like what they did with my character. And poor R2D2, he's just like this little like display on the side, and barely has any screen time. And we seen him more in one of the movies, let alone the sequel trilogy. And then he goes and says, well, you'll like the ending of Rise of Skywalker. You guys will be pleased with it. And so I was like, yeah, okay. So you're covering your tracks because you're still under contract. So does he feel that way? Probably, because we've seen Mark Hamill, say stuff. We, read it, seen it in interviews. And then he's also kind of retracted and walked it back a little bit. But then he always came back with his disdain or his displeasurement. And seeing the Disney Star Wars fans, the ones that, scream social justice, that we want equality, we want to see diversity, we want to see this, and this, and shaming us who don't really care for the new Disney lore or where it's going, or maybe even just one movie. And now they are, harassing him and other actors as well. Nice. I might have to check that book out, Jedi Susie. You might message me and tell me a little bit more about it, or send me a link to that so I could check it out. All right. And so, yeah, so that's just my thought on the thing with C-3PO and R2-D2 and the overall lore, as well as Anthony Daniels and his current statement about C-3PO. And I don't like where they're taking C-3PO in this. He never had to have his mind changed or adapted to translate. And one example is in True Set Bakora. And also another example is in Legacy of the Force when he is translating the language of the lost tribe of the Sith, Kesh, that language. And so in True Set Bakora, he the CC Rooks, he couldn't translate it, and R2-D2 recorded it, parts of the language, and they were put on a mission to decipher and decode the language so that they can translate it. And so we didn't have to see C-3PO's guts being ripped out just to decipher a language. Him and R2 worked as a team and accomplished that. So yes, this is comparing the original lore with the current new lore. And yeah, they have the rights to do what they are doing. But when you look at the original lore and see that there's other ways and methods, it's just I'm just at a loss for words for that. Maybe it's given C-3PO a bit larger role. Maybe it's that they don't understand the lore, because we've seen them pull Legends material out. Oh, hi, TC. This is my art studio. So this is where I do a lot of stuff. I have one room that's my art studio, and I sell beadwork, art supplies that like beadwork, needles, thread, all that. And I also do my own art in here. I also have my own room for my yoga studio where I teach yoga, teach private lessons. And so, yes, I do all my work in here, including my channel recording. Sometimes I'll do it in my living room where it's a little bit more cozier. So the picture behind me is a current project I'm working on, and the images of my daughter. And it's a contemporary native ledger art piece. So that's a little history on that. Okay, let me, again, grab your coffee, calf, join me. Have any questions for me? are any thoughts about this Anthony Daniels C-3PO and even explaining C-3PO and R2-D2 in the lore? If you have any questions about that, please, type out it, post a comment, and let me know. Hey, Sol, how you doing? Good morning. And I'm still learning how to work these, this little stream system I have here, so just have patience with me. All right. So I seen too that now again, because we have with Rian Johnson. Yeah. Anyways, with him, we have now stories of him possibly not having his trilogy again. So we have this on-off relationship we're seeing with him and Star Wars, Star Wars fans and the Star Wars universe. And I did not read the article. At this point, it's like everything that's coming out, I just keep on stirring back into George Lucas's era of Star Wars. So yes, we're going to get to the Leia one because it goes along with what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, and it's the Darkness trilogy. So yes, so we'll cover that too as well, Miss Nerf Herder. Okay, and you're just like displayed on my screen. You're like the star right here. Look at that. I don't know how to take it off. All right, I'll show that one. All right, so with that Rian Johnson's thing, if it's true, maybe it will do Star Wars a service, and maybe it will help bring some fans back into the fold from what he did with his deconstruction of the lore through The Last Jedi. However, I still say that Rian Johnson as well is the first person to deconstruct the lore. However, when Disney made the choice of making the original expanded universe non-canon, that was the first sign of deconstructing the lore. And that's where many who were well established within the EU pre-Disney stepped back and said, hey, well, okay, well, where does that leave us? And that was the beginning of the divide. Okay, Benjamin. Hi, Benjamin. I'm going to go ahead and read this. Unless C-3PO downloads HK-47, no interest to find out. If he did and then instantly killed Poe, Finn, bounty hunter, I'd then go see it. That would be very interesting to see, because we do get a glimpse of R2-D2 getting reconstructed in Attack of the Clones, and that was funny. That was like a comedic, because if you knew more about his lore, he is a protocol, and so that does not, so that would never compute with him to do something like that, and it would lead to something more fascinating, I guess you can say, especially if he was stolen and reprogrammed to go in there and kill some of the resistance. Now, would that be worth seeing? Maybe for fans like us, I don't know. Jedi Susie, I would cheer if he killed them. Yeah, that would be kind of a compelling story if he got if he was stolen and reprogrammed and was the spy killer that was sent back to the resistance. Who knows, the way Disney goes, but that would be something interesting to see, a protocol droid go nuts. Ruin Placid Johnson is a wanted criminal. He killed the franchise. People are just walking around with the body like weekends at Bernie's. Yes. Yeah, so back to Ryan. So like I said, if it's true and he doesn't get his trilogy, maybe some fans will return back and maybe will watch any other Star Wars come out. Now, will this correct any of the Skywalker lore that has been deconstructed? No. So that will always remain unless Disney itself decides to reboot the trilogy. That's the only way. And by rebooting the trilogy, that means they would have to also reboot their whole expanded, or I like to call explained universe. Because to me, it's not expanding. Their EU is not expanding on the lore. It's explaining their movies. And so you'll hear me say that a lot when I compare and contrast, is that explained universe means that's Disney's EU for me, because they are busy rehashing all the mistakes and the plot holes that they created because they wanted the creative freedom. And yes, they have every right. They own the franchise now, but they wanted the creative freedom to tell the story and how they see it. However, they failed to look at the foundation movies, the 6 movies. So even though I compare the original EU with their lore coming out, when you start comparing the original 6 movies to what's coming out and they contradict, and there's many plot holes, yeah, because Ryan's a plot hole, right? Shit. Okay. All right. Yeah. So, so it shows that they don't understand even the foundation movie. They don't understand the OT, or they're rebooting or rehashing is creating contradictions as well. Juro. Okay, I'm sorry if I butchered your name. My name is Alora Baga, Aloraj, so I get my name butchered all the time. And no, Disney will not honor any of the EU or OG trilogy. That'd be a confirmation of failure. Well, they're already not honoring the OT, and they hardly do anything with the PT. And I'm a fan of the PT. I understand that it may not have been George's best pieces when it comes to writing, but I do understand that actors did as best as they could with what they got. And I do understand the lore really expanded on the PT really expanded on the overall lore. Yes, Rian Johnson is a pothole in the highway of Star Wars. Yes, this is what you get when you have a producer, a president of the company, just bring in people because she thinks that they write strong female characters. And then you see the interview with Rian Johnson saying that he cannot write to save his life. And that's apparent. That is so apparent. And yeah, so this is what we get. This is what happens. And like I said, there's a lot of fans that left when the EU was made non-canon. Hi, what's up, Lorena? How you doing? Okay, thank you for coming by and listening and supporting, and I hope that you have your coffee, tea, or any type of morning eye-opener that suits you. How are you doing? All right, so back to Ryan. So if this is just another fallacy just to make the Star Wars fan go watch the new movie coming out in Mandalore, we don't know. We'll find out when things actually happen, because even Bob Iger said that they were going to slow down on movies, and then they didn't. They didn't slow down on production, and then now they're saying it again. So we shall see. They say one thing and do another, and so actions speak louder than words. And so show me the proof. Don't just speculate. Don't just say anything. Hi, Chaos. Everything Disney has released has been trying to re-explain the before and after of the originals. Yes, that's true. Partly after they after they decanonized the original lore, the EU, and made it into Legends because of creative freedom, they started, bringing in characters or some of the lore. I expect them to at least honor like how the Force was developed. However, they're not. I kind of expected them to honor like the worlds, the world building that happened, but they're not. I didn't expect them to fully bring in any characters from the original EU. And they brought in Thrawn, and however, yes, he was written by the original creator, but it's not the same. We don't have the same greatness that created Thrawn as who he was. Now Thrawn is in a bit forced into the new one, and his development is very different. He may have some of the same logic tactics as we see in the original EU, but it's not the same. So it's just a shell. And so anybody who says, oh, I hope so-and-so gets in there, or I hope that the Old Republic is put in there, or I hope that KOTOR is put in there, or whatever, it's not going to be the same. And there's already hints that Revan is going to be a female and that's speculations. That's just speculation. So don't expect the characters that they bring in from the original lore to be the same character. Benjamin, after they decanonized the EU, they gained a bizarre fetish of continuously ripping off dark forces too, multiple times. And now we have seen a game that's a shadow of the series. They're just doing that across the board. Like even with this this new episode coming out, we see hints of Dark Empire in there as well. And it's not going to be well done. Dark Empire was one of those that either was a favorite or it wasn't. There was no in between with fans because of Anakin's arc. And I'm just going to explain a little bit on how I think it fits better the original lore of the Emperor coming back, because that wasn't fully him. It was his clone and his Force essence. It wasn't his body surviving. And even Mara was telling Luke in the lore, I really don't think that was Palpatine. And now we're going to see, like it's leaked, speculated, whatever you want to call it, that he is returning in his form, like he survived. Yes, Kyle Katarn. I know. I love his character. And when you look, everybody, I think the best movie that people can say hands down that the new Star Wars put out is Rogue One. And that is basically, even though they wanted to get rid of the EU, that is basically a cut and paste, nearly a cut and paste of, the Kyle Katarn's arc and retrieving the Death Star plans and all that. And that's why people loved it. So that kind of says, okay, so if you loved Rogue One, get back into the EU, the original EU, and start collecting those books if you haven't. Start somewhere. If you're more of a PT user, or not PT liker, then, or even Old Republic, start there. If you are interested in the events that happened after Return of the Jedi, start, in the classical era leading past the Return of the Jedi into the New Republic and expanding the stories there from there. There's no wrong place to start, just start. And there's many of us who are avid EU lovers and legend lovers that you can come to and talk to and get advice on where to start and what books to start with. So, it's just falling in love with Star Wars again, falling in love with the original Star Wars again. And I think this is what Disney is causing everybody to do, is either falling back in love with the original Star Wars or coming into it as a brand new fan to the original EU. Yeah, Benjamin, I'm going to put these up here to read. And then we're going to get into Leia, and then we're going to get into the Dark Knight trilogy. All right. So Grand Inquisitor Jarek, yes, Rebels Jedi, Ramkoda and Kyle, correct. Pilot Jan Ors, yep, yeah. So there's a lot of great points there. Thank you. All right, Jedi Susie. So, you can contact me personally. You can contact, I know Rian is a great person. You can contact Matt Wilkins. There's a bunch of us that you can contact and ask. And, I like to do a small interview, okay, so what part of Star Wars do you like? Who are your favorite characters? Do you want to go back in time? prequel trilogy and explore that. Do you like the classical era? So that means the where the OT lies, and want to explore that? Or are you very interested, since we're getting a lot of post of the Return of the Jedi material coming out from Disney Star Wars, are you interested in seeing what really happens with Luke Skywalker and the grandchildren of Vader? So that's a good place, so just think about that and let us know, and we can point you to the right direction on which series to start with first. And I'll even give you a timeline as well. Oh yes, Bane trilogy. Yes, that's that in that era. That's the trilogy I started with, and I usually recommend the Bane trilogy. That is a great one to read, and it explains how the Sith decided to evolved into the rule of two. Yeah. But Kyle is my head counting too. I agree. Kyle is such a compelling character, and isn't it his family that the Rebel Alliance and the New Republic take their crescent from? Is from Kyle's family, the Katarns. Isn't that where it originated from? All right. So yes. Okay, for the gamers, so here's Chaos 7. If you're a gamer, there's a lot of great old Star Wars games too. This is saying to Jedi Susie. And yes, it is. I was never much of a gamer. However, when Nintendo came out, and I'm sharing my age now. Yeah. So when Nintendo came out, brand new, where we got the cartridges and we had to blow in them if they collected dust and stuff and insert them in, I was a Mario lover, Super Mario Brothers lover. So yeah, Star Killer. Okay. Yes, until they retcon. That's true. Yes, I forgot all about that. Thank you, Benjamin. Okay. All right. So what do you guys think about this new revelation about Leia? Okay, so we're going back into the original OT, about when Luke Skywalker is leaving because of his vision of his friends, and they plead him not to leave. And then as he's leaving, there's like, basically they're like, oh, there goes our hope. I'm not quoting, this is not precise quote, sorry. And then of course Yoda said, no, there's another. And then as you expand into the next movie, basically Lucas told the other is Leia. There's another Skywalker. The other is Leia. So what do you think about this revelation from Leia's brother about her being the last Jedi, or supposed to be the last Jedi? Do you think there was any hints to that, her being the last Jedi, for the sequel trilogy? Anybody have a take on that one? I agree. Soul Assassin Nintendo was amazing. Mario Kart and all that. Yes. So all right. So my take on that is I only watched reviews and read the synopsis of The Last Jedi because I knew that they were going to just humiliate Luke Skywalker's character. They were just going to flip it on his head and just turn him into something that basically regresses the character and does his character no justice. And so, I went on and watched the reviews from Mueller and multiple people about The Last Jedi. My kids went and watched it. They had mixed feelings. And I don't tell my kids, oh, you can't like this, or you, because I don't like it, or, vice versa, or whatever. I let them form their own opinions. So my family's kind of split. Me and my kids, my husband's not a Star Wars fan. But they understood how I felt with Luke and understood that Luke's character was regressed significantly. And so we see him run away cowardly, And I did a video about how he wouldn't run. Well, did I put that in that video? No. So in his character arc, after he completes his hero's journey, he is now the Jedi. He transforms, and that's what the hero's journey puts you through, a big, huge transformation to take the role of something greater. And so once you take that role, now you're the sage, you're the teacher, you're the one who's going to expand that knowledge. And they totally flip that on the head. And we don't, and so that scene with him and Ben Solo, and I hate that name. I hate that they renamed a character that doesn't even give Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi any justice. It's just, okay. So anyways, so I'm going to go back to Kylo. So he hovers over Kylo because he's seen the dark side in him with his lightsaber, wanting to kill him. But yet we see him with his love, his compassion, and his will saving his father. So now do you think that the Skywalker now that has transformed, that is wiser, that learned his lesson, because Luke even sacrificed himself because he didn't want to turn to the dark side in Empire Strike Back by throwing himself into the chasm, into the shaft, and getting rescued by Leia. And then we see him throwing his lightsaber, sacrificing himself as a Jedi. That's what that means. He's sacrificing himself as a Jedi. He's not throwing his saber away to declare he doesn't want to use the lightsaber, that he doesn't want that path. He's making a huge point to Palpatine that he will sacrifice himself for the greater good. That's what Jedis do. So we see him now is supposed to be the sage and teacher, wanting to kill, instead of sitting down and saying, what can I do to redeem? Because Luke is the redeemer. He is one of the, maybe the 1% of the Jedis that can redeem. He's the redeemer. So they totally just missed that mark. All right, so going back to Leia. So Leia in the original EU, now we're going to get into the series as well, because this fits in with the story that her brother, this article or this revelation that her brother put out about Leia being the last Jedi. Again, the question is, do you even see that developing in the sequel trilogy, hinting that she's going to be the last Jedi? Actually, I don't. And that's where I went on my rant with Luke, because it just pisses me off how they treated his character and how they regressed him so much. They could have done this so many different ways that gave the new characters, handed the proverbial lightsaber down to the next characters, to the new generation, without sacrificing the character and humiliating them, and ruining the arc. And that's why I say, come back to this. This explains and tells the story so much. Many people say, oh, well, he was overpowered. He was not overpowered. It took him years to get to where he's at. He went through a lot of training. Luke went through a lot of trials and tribulations, to defeats, to even being defeated by, not fully defeated by, but put in a coma by Exar Kun. And so we see a lot of trials and tribulations. And even in the series here, his fears and his doubts are used against him in part of the books. Okay. So back to Leia, because I can rant about that all day. Sorry about that. I agree, Benjamin. Ben Solo is a knockoff from Jason Solo. That is enough for another's tale to tell next time. So in the series, Leia, so throughout the EU, from the beginning, Leia, at first she deals with coming to terms with her Skywalker heritage and her father. And we see Intrusa back her confronting her father, and that's a good read. It got mixed reviews. I liked it, but I like to cross-reference the lore and all that. And I guess I get really into the books. And then Tatooine Ghost. I don't know how to turn off my notifications for YouTube. All right. I get it. And Tattooing Ghost is another compelling book to read because she discovers her father's legacy as a young boy on Tatooine. She also gets to learn about her grandma Shmi Skywalker. And it just gives me chills just thinking about that book because it's so compelling, and also shares her fears of having kids, of giving birth to another Vader, and her making peace with that. So over time, she overcomes her Skywalker heritage and herself as a Skywalker, and she's also thrusted into help creating the New Republic and later the Galactic Alliance. And so she goes through training. Imperial static. Yeah. Dun, dun. Yeah. All right. So she starts training through Luke. However, a lot of that gets postponed, and she also goes through frustration because she has some difficult times with it. And I think that's very, I wouldn't say realistic, but it just shows that not all Jedis, including Anakin's daughter and son, his kids, will pick up on the Force easy, no matter how powerful they may be. And Luke is evidence of that in the OT, where he can't even lift his X-wing out of the swamp, So there you go. And then we have this Mary Sue that can just do anything because she can. And so over time, she helps build the Alliance, or helps build the new galactic government, and then trains. And then we see her fully finish her training in the series here in Dark Nest and become a Jedi Knight. And then a lot of great stories about her being a Jedi is after the series in Legacy era. So if you're a very big Leia fan, and you want to see her as a Jedi Knight, Legacy era is a great read for that. And so they said that she was going to be the last Jedi for the sequel trilogy. I don't see evidence of that. And if that's how they were going to approach that, then they are already, again, breaking their own continuity. In the book Bloodline, I did read a couple of Disney Explain Universe novels, and Bloodline turned me off because it basically, again, turns Leia and Han's love story on its head. So warning. What's going on here? Virtuous. I'm a bigot because I said that. Awesome. Thank you. I own that because I think she's full of shit. All right. Anyways, so going back to Leia. Thank you for the laugh. I love it. I love everybody's humor. All right. Yeah. So they are breaking their own continuity because in Bloodline, what the hell did I drop? All right. In Bloodline, she refuses training. Luke gives her some basic telekinesis methods to like sense things in the Force, like trouble and stuff, but usually those are some innate Force sensibilities that Force users, if you read the lore and explore the Force and the lore with sensitives, that's usually like, danger sense and little small telekinesis things are innate to Force users that they can just use, like even the intuition that they can just use and sense, but you do need training. And so she denies Luke full training, and she sends her son off to Luke because she feels the darkness in him as well. And then all that shit happens and Luke runs away because he decides to try to kill his nephew, which is out of character. Yeah, and so where does she have time to even say, okay, now I want to train, when she doesn't even see Luke after she sends Ben off to him, and she doesn't even know where he's at. So it's very, very confusing. Yes, it is very confusing. Yeah, let me see. Only way out, this is Benjamin, only way out for them is to let Palpatine win. Yeah, I think that, and that would then be, this would then be a Palpatine saga, which I don't mind. I think that they should have just stared away and left Return of the Jedi as the last story of the Skywalkers, if that's what they're calling it in the movies. And then expand from something different, do something totally different. If they wanted to expand on the grandkids, then one thing, even if they didn't keep, well, okay, if they kept the EU, the original EU, then they can go after Crucible. Because then we're seeing Jaina, because we were supposed to get the Sword of the Jedi book novelization trilogy out, that we could see Jaina and Ben and Jagged, the big three, because you notice that it's 333 as their protagonists. And yeah, so that, it just boggles my mind on creative freedom, yet we'll bring all this other stuff back in, yet we want to reinvent the story. So let's go ahead and just take a wrecking ball to the foundation of the movies, of the lore. And the foundation of the lore is the 6 original movies. And so I don't think that Leia, I just can't see them making her the Last Jedi, not in this series. There was no evidence. She didn't even have any development. Like there was, it's like, she was just very opposite of the spunky Leia Organa Solo that we've seen in the original trilogy. There was no interest for me in her to even see an inkling that she was going to become a Jedi. Yeah, you can't build a house if you're tearing down the foundation at the same time. Exactly. And you know, creative freedom to me is like, and want to reinvent or write the Star Wars lore in your own, is respectfully tucking what was made, like the foundation, the movies that was made before you bought the franchise, tucking it away and saying, this is still here for you. And we honor this. However, we're going to develop new stories here. And we're not going to even worry about expanding the original, the characters from the movies. They're done. Now let's go ahead and let's bring a new character that's not even associated to them. Maybe bring hints of like holocron movies or news about the past, so that, you know, we could say, oh yeah, they're looking at the past of what happened and what the Skywalkers did, and maybe have hints and nods to it, but develop brand new characters and brand new stories, and respecting what the Force is about, and what the lore is about. Yes, and that's why. So I'm going to go to Anakin's story and how in the comics, and you'll see that the comics are deconstructing the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. So we get in Plagueis, Dark Plagueis, the novel in Legends, or the original EU, he is manipulating the Force and the midichlorians to discover immortality and creating his own army. And the Force counters him. And the Force even blocks him from using it for a little while and creates Anakin through Shmi. So it was a random thing. And now in the comics, Disney's comics, we see that it's hinted that Palpatine is the one that created Anakin. So think about that. The chosen one. I don't think Palpatine had it. It doesn't fit. Palpatine should not have any hands in with creating the chosen one. So that deconstructs Anakin right then and there. And it's heartbreaking, because that then right there is the main string in the foundation being pulled. because now it sets off a domino effect, because we go into the original trilogy, we go into his fall as Darth Vader and his conflict, and then we go into the original trilogy where he's this big baddie, and Luke discovers his lineage and says, you know what, there's still good in him. I want to bring my father back. I want to get to know him. That's basically, if you think about the mindset of Luke, is that he wanted to bring him back to the light side, to redeem him, to have a relationship with him, and for the greater good. And so when we see them in the Return of the Jedi, when Luke sacrifices himself out of love to save Vader, basically by throwing his lightsaber, and then cries for him to help him, Father, please help, he's saying, that gets to Anakin, because we've seen in the PT that Palpatine uses Padme against him and he loses Padme in that. And then we also see him making that choice of sacrificing Mace Windu because of greed, because he wants to save his wife, and because he needs the dark side. And he realized those were the wrong choices, that because of Palpatine, he lost everything he loved. And so he's not going to lose Luke. He's not going to lose that. He's not going to lose the things that he thought he lost. He has a chance. And so because of Luke's love and compassion, because of Luke's compassion and love, he saves his father, and in return, Vader saves his son by throwing Palpatine down. So, yeah. Let me see here. Let's see here. Plagueis, the longest victim of the longest mind trick in Star Wars history, from the time Palpatine was a bloody teenager, yet he still has fans who thinks he's a god. Plagueis was tragic, and my perspective on that situation is they had to create Sidious or Palpatine as this genius, I guess you can say, and to expand that lore and make him who he is as we see him in the movies. And so we see Palpatine as a manipulator from the beginning. And so yes, Plagueis was a fool for that. And so that Darth Plagueis the Wise, I don't think he was particularly wise in his situation, if you look at it. That's just my thought. Okay, do you ever read the Mary Sue Online publications? That stuff is so dumb. I have seen many YouTubers use them as a source, or just like say, look at this hypocrisy right here. This is so friggin' stupid. And I haven't personally gone on there to read, because it's just fun enjoying watching other YouTubers just bring out that nonsense. And sometimes I just don't have time. In fact, I was going to read that article about Leia being the Last Jedi. I have it prepared and ready to go right here, but it's just much more fun just touching basis on it, and then compare and contrasting her in the original lore and what they're trying to do with her in the new lore. Plagueis thought he was a god. Yeah, he did. He did. And you see a bit of greed, because the Muns and their world were the banks of the universe. And so they had a lot of money. He had a lot of money. And so I think that if we're going to go the SJW route, oh God, then yes, he is, what do you call it? He is, shit, now I forget what I was going to say. But yeah, so he is basically that money and greed. And he has that God complex because of that. And So we see that. And one thing that's brilliant about George Lucas's era of Star Wars is that there's a lot of elements that we can see and say, oh shit, this is how people are acting today. But it was vague. He didn't just put it in front of your face to say, oh, we're going to use this because we don't like SJ, or we don't like misogynist pigs, or whatever, whatever the line that people are using today. That was not his focus of the stories. His focus was to tell stories that we can relate to through the human condition. And that's why I love the Legends or the original EU, because I can relate it through the human condition. And I know it's fantasy, and I know I can use it as escapism. With Star Wars today, it's like going and reading the friggin' news of today and all the politics. And it's not a way for me to escape out of today's realm just to have a break. So it is what it is. And so I think that's a lot of people are now realizing that. And the new generation, I noticed, that are nihilistic too as well. So we're coming up almost on an hour. And so let's touch bases a little bit more with the Darkness trilogy. And I wanted to go ahead and, which book is it? Did I have it marked? I know I have. I thought I had put a bookmark in it, and I might have taken it out. So for you guys getting to know me, I love reading and cross-referencing all the books to all the other books and the movies, and I annotate, and I love sharing that and saying, hey, this is why I got into the EU after the movies, is because of the continuity, because it was continuous lore that expanded 25 centuries. Was it centuries? Yeah. And the Luminous Project, I think a number of authors are contributing. Is it a rumor? You know what? I heard some things about it, but I never looked into it. So, interesting. Okay. So going back, this is the last book. This is one with Swarm War. So, and of the trilogy. And like I said, I was debating on if just covering the trilogy as a whole or doing individual books. And I tried doing it as a whole. I might now just do individual books. We'll see. But like when it gets into the Legacy of the Force and bigger series, I am going to have to cover individual books and when I expand on the lore. So again, what got me into the EU Legends is that is the continuity and how well it ties in with the movies, and how this is just basically a history of a galaxy that could exist outside of our own realm, or our own galaxy, our own universe, or whatever, however you want to say that. And so George and his story groups and his company did a great job at creating one steady lore, going back from the beginning of the Jedi and the Force all the way to the Legacy comics, where it left off at before the buyout. And there are some things that still needed to be patched in, like Legacy of the Sword, Sword of the Jedi, Legacy of the Sword. That's another new title for Jaina Solo, right? So I'm just going to read a small little piece about R2 revealing Anakin and Padme, and it's just going to be a small thing before we close here. And like I said, my thing is to make you guys, if you're not reading already, or if you haven't really expanded into another part of the EU, the original EU, is to fall in love with it and fall in love with how well all these tie in together with each other and with the movies. Okay, and this is so heartbreaking and compelling. Let me see here. Okay, so this is where R2 is revealing to Luke the truth about Padme and Anakin. And so R2, through his malfunction in his deep core, he has recorded everything that's gone on between Padme and Anakin, and he's slowly revealing this to Luke. An ominous but barely audible whine arose somewhere inside R2-D2. The hollow began to flicker again, and a familiar voice spoke from outside of the holoframe. "Let her go, Anakin." Arms still extended and Padme still choking, Anakin turned to sneer at the speaker. "What have you and she been up to?" Obi-Wan Kenobi stepped into the view, wearing the sand-colored robes of a Jedi. Though his back was to the camera, his shape had bearded profile where clearly recognizable. So basically, this is the scene of Revenge of the Sith on Mustafar. "Let her go." Anakin whipped his arms to one side, and Padme flew out of the hollow. Okay. So this was being revealed to Luke through R2's deep core malfunctions. And what's so compelling is after this was all revealed, Luke had to leave and meditate. He felt like some of his efforts that he put into redeeming his father was like that. It was just tragic. His efforts, he felt, were like not worth it in a sense, but then worth it. And seeing the extent of what his mother had to do and how his father was abusing her or choked her with the Force in that, and seeing his transformation. And so, like I said, it gives me chills. It brings you back into the lore even more. It's more in depth. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of depth into that. So even if this is not your favorite series, even if it's just for what R2 is revealing, and again, this goes back to R2 and C-3PO and them witnessing and telling the Skywalker story, if we're going to add it, say it that way, and then seeing how less they are used. So in a way, I think with R2, the droids in the sequel trilogy, what would be compelling in knowing about their arc and the overall storyline, seeing them being destroyed and then cutting it out in the end of the story. That would be kind of compelling, I guess. So Luke, was very stunned and emotional about this revelation about how his father basically nearly killed his mother. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so the Darkness trilogy, it's the transition between the New Jedi Order, and so in there too we see Jason's fall even further because it shows a glimpse of the dark side, and how Mara tells Jason how his mindset mirrors Palpatine's, and she should know. And then once we get into Legacy of the Force and we start seeing that fall, and Jason really thinks that he's doing what's right for the galaxy, which kind of mirrors his grandfather. And then he's not a Vader fan, not like what we see in the new ST. And so I'm going to close with that. We're coming up on the hour. So I hope you guys had a great time chatting with me, going through the lore, going through the Dark Nest and the news of Star Wars. And I look forward to having live chats more with you guys. And hopefully we could do this more. So I'm thinking of doing live chats every second and last Thursdays of the month, and then the first and third will be more of a pre-recorded one, and we'll see. So leave your comments with me here. Let me know if you rather have like an hour of morning chat about Star Wars and the lore live stream and just get something. And I'm also thinking of doing like the evening cocktails maybe once a month, where we can, if those who can't make it on in the morning, will have a chance to come on in the evening time. So I'm trying to develop this channel to be interactive, sharing the lore, diving deep into the EU, into Legends, and cross-referencing just to find that love. Even if you didn't like the book, just finding what's good about the book. Like what was compelling about the story, even if you didn't like the overall book. And so that's my goal. And how did I feel about the new Jedi Order series? I actually liked it. So yeah, I'll answer that question and we'll close here. I liked it because we got away from the old Empire versus Rebels kind of thing, or Empire versus the New Republic faction kind of storytelling, and we get to see them unite and fight these baddies from, you know, the unknown region from outside of the galaxy. And so I thought that was compelling. There, yeah, I have books, some books more I love in the series than the others, and I think that's a given with everybody else. And some people, like I said, I've heard reviews that people just don't like the storyline. That's fine. I liked it because of that. I like that because we got to see, like I said, a new baddie. We got to see Luke and a lot of the Jedi grow in that series and deal with beings that were detached from the Force. Okay, yeah, it'll do best if I did it. I will do best to make I live, but I work at nights. Okay, so yeah, so if like I said, if I do nights, if I do it, I probably will do like a cocktail chat, like maybe once a month on a Thursday night instead as well. Star by Star and Dark Journey, Jaina Gold. Yes. You just gave me the chills. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and close that. For Tuesdays, I'm posting about the lore. So Tuesday is going to be pre-recordings about the lore. And so I'm focusing on Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader. So I'm going to go ahead and expand on that book, that novel. I think it's appropriate. And I'm still developing my Luke Skywalker 2 then now. It's Luke Skywalker is one of the characters that have an extensive history, and I think that's how it's going to be with Anakin as well. And so I'm trying my best to compare and contrast with what's coming out with Luke Skywalker in the new series. And so I just want to make sure that it comes out right. So I'll be posting that, but in the meantime, I'll also be posting other, about the books. Yes, nice chatting with you guys. So have a great day. I have to get ready and go pick up lunch and go to my art class. So thank you once again. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And again, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. And may the Force be with you. Thank you, everyone.